I think you can apply the word genius. I think anyone that looks at the different spaces that Ken has created sees that they are wonderful, incredible spaces, but he also understood people and how they move in a space and what stimulates them and what can add to their life from their experience with nature. These ideas welled up within him. They were an intuitive response to the opportunities that he had, to the land and the water and the air. My name is Dave Hampton. I'm a local San Diegan, and I'm an author of a book called San Diego's Craft Revolution and an independent curator. Dr. and Mrs. Joe Bailey are responsible for the Bailey House, which is northeast of San Diego in the sort of back country. He bought raw land in 1972. Eventually, he and Barbara Bailey together decided to work with Ken Kellogg. Ken had a lot of appeal because he's one of the few native-born San Diegans to develop a practice here that was informed by mid-century modern ideas. Ken also had a handcraft element to his work and a sculptural element to his work. Ken Kellogg's architecture had a kind of a roughness and a kind of a sun and surf sensibility, that there was something about his growing up next to the Pacific Ocean, but also having the mountains just 10 or 20 minutes away, that helped him to come up with his own signature organic architecture. So Steve Bailey and I are at the front door of his family home, the Bailey House. And the door is an important feature of the artist John Vugren.
John Vugren also worked with Ken on the Kellogg Doolittle house. It's on a pin system. It's a custom door. A locksmith guy just came out to help us with stuff 2 weeks ago, and he was like, this is all commercial hardware. It's super rare.
And you can see how the door is built out sculpturally, so it's dimensional with this curve, and it's built using laminated individual strips of wood. The client started out wanting a functional ranch house that the owner could build himself with their ranch hands. But what Ken is inspired to come up with is a really wild, wonderful, complicated design. Mr. Bailey apparently took this on as a challenge and built the house himself with helpers, with ranch hands, and a number of different carpenters, most of whom were referred by Ken. And they do Ken's designs perfectly, but the house took a really long time to build. The rock, when you see the rock work in this house, it's just amazing. And it was quarried on the site from down below this hilltop.
I think my dad spent a lot of time running the cement mixer for this, because he said he lost a lot of his hearing. It's like layer by layer, stack by stack of all these rocks.
Just inside the front door is a key kind of junction of the whole house, where its two wings meet up. There's a gap between them that you walk into. One side has a bedroom, the other side has the living areas, the kitchen and the living room and the fireplace and so forth. What I see a lot in the Bailey house is a maturation and a kind of a controlling of this language that Ken had developed in many, many other houses. So he's got the circular spaces, he's got the stonework, he's got the dramatic dynamic curves of the roof and the balconies, he's got all the glass, he's got all these handmade elements. One of the qualities of Kellogg's version of organic architecture is a deliberate blurring of the conventional division between the exterior and the interior. And so the idea that you have your finished interior cabinetry penetrating the exterior space is unusual and blurs that distinction between interior and exterior. But it's a little bit of a struggle because part of it's outside and getting hit by the elements.
It's very difficult to maintain outside. It gets slammed by rain, wind, heat. We sand and restain it at least every year.
A couple of things about the kitchen that I think are noteworthy are that it's really the center point for all of the structure of the house that you see. And here is where all these massive laminated beams supported on the utility poles, they all come together in this space. If you're out in this room, all these points above you lead you here, and then it's echoed by the built-in table.
Other feature that comes to mind with this kitchen is the skylight. It's pretty rad. My brother and I rode our skateboards in this thing when it was standing up vertically and delivered out on the garage. That was a cool memory that I have of the house, definitely.
As the more clean look of woodworking that we associate with the 40s and 50s in modern furniture design evolved, they started to talk about something called the California roundover, where cabinets and pieces of furniture had a kind of a curve. But here it's put into the kitchen, into a more utilitarian environment, and it's floated off the ground. So everything has space around it, so they become these discrete, three-dimensional, very sculptural elements. There's this idea that's associated with Frank Lloyd Wright, the idea of a big, hearty fireplace being the center of the home. And what you see from Ken throughout his career is a development of this fireplace as a key attraction and sculptural element, a kind of a focal point of the living room. But he's also highlighting the sculptural form. There are gaps all around the shape of the fireplace so that it's completely freestanding. The glass pierces the rock and the fireplace goes outside and inside at the same time, and it has these wonderful floating hearth of cast concrete. It's a way of distinguishing one material, one surface from another. So this big mass that you see with this geometry to it in plan view continues down into the floor beneath us, creating these warm walls for 2 bedrooms downstairs. The house is really integrated to the mountaintop site. Part of it is subterranean, it's down in the earth itself. And so it's a perfect example of a house that grows of the hill. You also feel, at least I feel a little bit, like I'm looking out the opening of a cave. So even though the glass and the windows are high, he also does this thing of creating a line that gives you a sense of a lowering of the space. He's really called attention to it with giving it a different stain, a contrasting stain. This is such a cliche, but it is like being inside a sculpture.
This is the primary bedroom.
This wing has a lot of same elements that the other wing does. It has its own fireplace, but also it has the same sort of gap in the ceiling that leads your eye to the central skylight or oculus. And beneath the skylight is another round enclosure where there's a dressing area, closets, bathroom, etc. The headboard and the built-in night tables and shelving is something that shows Ken's preference for woodworkers to be able to design these very aesthetically pleasing elements. He talked about a kind of an honesty in use of materials. And so here he's showing you exactly how it's constructed and taking the construction process and the structure itself, all the elements, and going, this is an element that I want you to see of how everything is put together. And wherever you see them, they create a kind of visual rhythm that creates another part of the visual experience. Ken really thought that people should use glass in a much more free way. And I think that Ken would use the glass in a joyful way to create a lively momentum and visual lines, but it also served to separate every single structural element that you see. And you get this fascination with the free interpenetration of interior and exterior space that the glass allows for.
We've got the circular patterns all around, and most obviously the mirror with this killer lighting above it. When you walk in and you shift around, it does kind of an optical, interesting play where there's another door and it's like, is it all cabinets? Is it a one-way entrance? No, it's two. It's kind of neat.
This relates to the bathroom design in the Doolittle house, where John Vugren did a very elaborate version of this very same central structure. One of the kind of neat things about Kellogg is that although he really cherished this idea of taking every client, every job, every site, and allowing it to dictate a brand new approach, he still had a sort of familiar bag of tricks that he would pull out. These shapes, these buildings that he created, so distinctive, so wonderful. If he was taking in the information of what other architects built, he took it in at a kind of peripheral level and he mixed it up and he created something super unique and wonderful. That's how I think he was a true artist, because that stuff seemed to have come intuitively.